The Rooster Prince of Breslov. This is a great story, one I've told many times. I'm looking forward to PJ Library's version. The Rooster Prince of Breslov. In Breslov, there lived a prince who had more than he wanted. When he was hungry for a scrap of bread, he got a slice of cake dripping with honey. When he asked for a raisin, he was given a bowl of candied plums. When his eyes rested on a pony or strudel or a bird's nest or a golden ball, it was bundled up and brought to him before he even blinked. It must be nice to be a prince. One day, right in the middle of a lavish lunch he didn't want and barely even touched, the prince cried, "Enough!" With that, the prince jumped out of his chair, ripped off his clothes and his shoes, and squatted on the marble floor. "Bok, bok, bok," he chuckled, scratching at the tiles with his toes, pecking at crumbs. Then, into the stunned silence of the banquet hall, he crowed, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" Despite the best efforts of his royal parents, the prince would not get dressed, or eat at the table, or speak a single human syllable. The king and queen were at their wits' end. Finally, after a long week of clucking, cock-a-doodle-doo-ing, the king offered a bag of gold to anybody who would cure his son. It's an interesting problem, a prince who decides to act like a rooster. First came a doctor with a satchel full of medicine. When he tried to dribble sticky drops onto the prince's tongue, the prince pecked his hand. "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" yelled the prince as he chased the doctor out the door, flapping his arms. The king and queen were waiting anxiously in the corridor. "Your son has the most serious case of, roosterism I have ever seen," the doctor said. "Perhaps you better send for a magician." Have you ever been so sick your parents wanted to call a magician instead of a doctor? The next day, a whole platoon of magicians arrived. They chanted spells, they sprinkled their potions onto the prince, onto the furniture, onto the floor, but to no avail. "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" cried the prince, and he pecked at their legs until every sorry sorcerer fled. Before long, only one old frail man, all gray and grizzled, was left. He had no bag of medicine, no potions, no pills. When the queen peered up his sleeve, she saw no magic wand, just a skinny, hairy arm. "Are you a doctor?" she asked. "A sorcerer? A magician?" "I am not," the old man answered. "But if you give me 7 days and do exactly as I say, I promise I will turn a prince ready to rule the land." "1 week?" asked the king, eyeing the old man suspiciously. "Believe me, bigger things have been accomplished in the same time," the man replied. "But will he be just like before?" the queen asked. "Well, not exactly," said the old man. But his wrinkled old face looked so wise, and the king and queen were so desperate. They agreed to provide all the odd things the old man asked for. Then they led him to the room where they had locked up the prince, who thought he was a rooster. When the old man entered the room, the prince was pecking at kernels of corn that had been thrown onto the floor for him. "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" he raged, careening toward the old man. "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" replied the old man. The old man pulled off his clothes. The old man squatted on the floor and began to peck at the corn as well. The prince teetered to a sudden stop. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "I am a rooster," replied the old man, "and I was a little hungry. Do you mind if I share your corn?" The prince had never shared anything with anyone before. He stared at the old man, his mouth wide open. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. The old man kept chewing. "Of course I do. You're a rooster, just like me." All day long, the old man hunched beside the prince, pecking and strutting and clucking in a friendly way. All right. When the prince went to sleep on the cold floor, the man did the same. Kind of weird. The second day was exactly like the first. The old man and the rooster boy bucking and clucking and pecking at corn side by side. I'm not a good chicken, am I? When the room grew dark, the old man pointed to two straw mattresses that had been slipped into the corner. "Cluck, cluck, cluck, cluck. What are those things? Cluck, 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 cluck." "Cluck, cluck, 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 cluck," replied the prince. "Those are beds." "What are they for?" "Cluck, cluck, cluck, cluck," said the prince. "For people to be comfortable when they sleep." The old man waddled to one of the mattresses and looked at it, rubbed his neck, which was stiff from sleeping on the floor. "Why should humans have all the comfortable beds while we roosters sleep on the ground?" "You know," said the prince, "maybe a nice old rooster could sleep on it." "You're right," said the old man. He climbed onto the mattress and fell asleep. When he awoke the next morning, the prince was fast asleep on the second mattress. The room was filled with the aroma of warm black bread. "Cluck, cluck, 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 cluck," said the old man, pointing at a tray on the floor. "Cluck, cluck, cluck, cluck. What's that?" "Bawk, bawk, 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 bawk," replied the prince, rubbing his eyes. "That's black bread." "What's it for?" asked the old man. "People eat it," explained the prince. "It's very tasty with butter when it's warm." "Again for the humans," cluck, 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 said the old man. "Bawk, bawk, 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 bawk," replied the prince, watching the old man try to chew a hard kernel of corn. Maybe a hungry old rooster could eat just a bit of soft bread. The old man took the warm bread and tore off a piece. "You're right," he said, munching happily on the bread. "Why should people get all the good stuff, all the tasty treats, while we roosters peck on corn on the floor?" Soon the prince was squatting beside him, hungrily eating the rest of the black bread. No butter yet. The next morning, there was more fragrant black bread, this time atop a rough pine table. "Cluck, cluck, cluck," said the old man. "My back is bothering me a little. Mine too, said the prince. I see they put the black bread on that thing, the old man said, next to the other things, all those legs. What are they for? You mean that swayback table, asked the prince. That's for people to sit at when they eat. And the rickety chairs, they're what people sit on. Glop, 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 said the old man, rubbing his back. People, again. Well, said the prince, jumping up, what harm would it do if an old rooster like you sat comfortably? At that, the old man climbed onto one of the chairs. You're right. Why should people get all the comfort when they eat, while we roosters have to strain our backs? After a few minutes, the prince climbed onto the other chair. The prince and the old man ate their black bread, seated side by side. That night, the old man and the prince awoke with a start. Someone had thrown the windows open while they slept, and the autumn wind was whistling in their room. Pluck, 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 chattered the old man. I'm so cold. Rock, 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 rock. The prince shivered in agreement. At the first light of day, as the sunlight filled the room, the prince saw a thin blanket folded neatly on the table. Too cold to even remember to strut like a rooster, he grabbed the blanket and wrapped it around the old man and himself. This is a very scratchy blanket, he said. People use it to keep warm, the prince said. People this, people that, complained the old man. How are we roosters supposed to keep warm? The prince shut the window, and they spent the whole cold day with the blanket draped over themselves and their two chairs. The sixth day, it was even colder. What do people do when it's cold like this? The old man asked. Do they not have some clever way to keep themselves warm, unlike us unfortunate roosters? Cluck, 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 clothes, said the prince. He pointed to the pile of clothes he and the old man had discarded. Why should an old rooster like you shiver all day long? And the two scurried to get dressed. This is delightful, said the old man, squatting on the floor in his woolen trousers and his big black coat. Brilliant, replied the prince, happily buttoning the shirt he hadn't worn for weeks and pulling on his socks. The seventh day, the old man and the prince woke up on the straw mattresses under the rough blankets, stretched, and put on their warm clothes. They sat on their rough pine chairs, eating coarse black bread and clucking contentedly. Cluck, 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 cluck. Cluck, 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 cluck. Cluck, 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 cluck. Just before nightfall, a beautiful braided challah, a pot of stew, a small jug of wine, candlesticks, and a silver cup were brought in and placed on the table. What is this? Replied the old man. Well, this is a Sabbath feast, said the prince. The old man rose to his feet. It feels good to stand up, he said. Why should people light beautiful candles when we poor roosters squatting on the ground can't? Come help, young friend. Slowly the prince stood up. Together, he and the old man lit the candles, said the blessings, ate the challah, and drank the wine. When they finished their meal, the old man spoke solemnly. My friend, he said, the week is done. It's time for me to go home. How I hate to leave a fellow rooster behind in this place where roosters have no comfort, no warmth, no clothing, no Sabbath feast, and people have everything. What will become of you? The prince sighed. The old man scratched his chin. Well, you do look quite a bit like a person, he said. In fact, you look exactly like the prince. I'm a rooster, insisted the prince. Can't you see the way I strut and crow, flap my wings, scratch at the floor? Just because I slept on a mattress and ate at a table and put on these clothes, that doesn't make me a man. You're right, replied the old man. It's the way you treated the cold, hungry, achy old rooster that makes you a man. For it was you, your majesty, who wrapped me in a blanket and shared your Sabbath feast. It's lucky for you that you look like a man, for you have just become one. The prince thought hard and long. And when he got up from his chair, he felt he was, let's say, a little taller than he felt before. And that's how it happened, that the prince grew up to be a king. And sometimes when the sky was blue and the sun was high and he heard his own son whistling a tune, he almost forgot he had ever been a rooster. He's grown up, and now that's his son, the prince, the next prince. And that's the end. I like this story because, like we all know, the prince wasn't a rooster, but he was really playful. He wanted everyone to play with him. And it wasn't until the grown-ups stopped telling him that he wasn't a rooster that he started acting like a person again. I think that happens to lots of kids, that sometimes the grown-ups in our lives want us to behave in a way that we just want to be playing still, and they want us to grow up so fast. I think the old man learned a lot pretending to be a rooster. He learned that it is okay sometimes to use your imagination even if it's not normal. Well, I hope you enjoyed this PJ Library book. And next week, I'll find another one to share with you. Bye.